Hey guys, I'm sorry. I suppose the stream has stopped because guys write me these things. Vitaly, could you please send me one more link? Everything was okay and you stopped. Yeah. Oh, now it's okay, as I see.
That one starts or no?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I continue?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
cool.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. So, and let me just to summarize this, this topic. If you're talking about the choosability, it's mostly up to you. So, if you know how to properly work with object-oriented programming, please write cool and understandable code. If you know how to work with functional programming, please work with it in proper way. But again, you should know the tools that you are using, and you can write incorrect code both in object-oriented programming and in functional. But in functional, you have less possibilities to write ugly code, write incorrect logic, and everything can be not everything, but mostly 90% of errors can be checked during the compilation phase, and that is really cool. That's the main idea. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Like, there's like things that we should like things overall about the modernity concepts. Like, what is the good about the functional program? What is the bad about object-oriented programming? And overall, you're totally right. Okay, so we already talked about the usability. If you guys have any questions, hoping that you're still watching us on the YouTube, you can ask the questions if there's any. Okay, I think you guys don't have questions. Okay, then what we can go to the modernity. Like, does the functional programming or object-oriented fit with the current needs? Like, and like overall the things. We'll start from there once again. Igor, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so if we're talking about the modernity of things that, as you mentioned at the beginning of our talk, that mostly even React framework got some kind of functional programming aspects like lambdas, hooks, etc. It's not a I don't know. I can say this is real functional programming. It's just kind of concept is higher order functions, um, lambdas, and the same thing we we have in Java. Is starting from Java 8, you can say that you are a real functional programmer and you are using lambdas, and that's actually all. Also, but functional programming is mostly the whole infrastructure, and as I mentioned, you have more concepts than high order function and lambdas. And why we use them and why they are useful. And for now, I see that most of all languages become multi-paradigm, where we have a mix of different concepts. And why we have this? Because reactive programming becoming as a new standard when you have a lot of events that you consume from external world. You process them in some way in your application and you produce an output, and this is very likely what we see as a function. You have some input, you have some logic in internally, and you have some output. That is actually what you have in reactive programming in even driven applications, and that's why functional programming, again, it's more modern. Yes, we can say about it. But again, if you would like to represent the object model, then I don't know, I like to use object oriented paradigm for that, and represent data structures as an object, but use functions to process their state. This is mostly it. And just to show you the multi-paradigm pitfall with Java, it's near to production code. As I mentioned previously, in Java we have some kind of lambdas, but Java still has concept of the mutable state, and here you can see how we can get the problems with it. We use cool functional programming abstractions, like we use lambda to get some internal state of your object. But to the outside of from this lambda, you get not the immutable data structure as you if you can get if you are using Scala, Haskell, or all any other truly functional language. You get a mutable state, and then you can change it, and you change the state of your internal object, and this does not work well in concurrency, and even in simple code where you get something, change it, and put and internal state of core object has changes after it. So, and multi-paradigm should, and the idea of that it should be used in a proper way and get more than one concept of the functional programming. So the high order function is not enough if you have mutable data structures, and vice versa.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Igor. Yeah, you're right regarding the mutability stuff, because like overall, even I am more about the JavaScript. In the JavaScript, there's also exists the problem with the mutability of the data. We like constantly having this problem, even in some super cool modern solutions like React plus Redux or MobX or something. There still can be some problems in the immutability. Diego, what do you think about the modernity? Let's share us it with us.
Yeah, thank you, Dima. I think for modernity, there's a few key concepts, key points, and those are maintenance, performance, efficiency, and productivity. Modern frameworks really care about you being as efficient and productive as possible. So they already have a modular approach where you are making use of our already created, already configured system, where you already have the basis of the language and some basic functions like connecting to a database, making use of some math functions, and this modular approach are often related with third-party models and third-party dependencies. And let's say you have a JavaScript program where you are making use of an external API, and then you need to connect those two and synchronize. And there is already tools that have you make that connection, and you don't really need to repeat all of this code because it's been already implemented. And that's where the third-party approach comes, the third-party models and dependencies. Object-oriented came in a way that we need to care. We need to just select a few dependencies, and we can have a good program running. We don't really have to repeat ourselves in the modern frameworks, and that's something is still improving. I mean, there's still some frameworks working on how to be more efficient, and in a way, there are frameworks that are only used for a certain context. If you have a logic-based program, or if you have a program that needs a lot of concurrency, and those things, the variation to the context, are where you need to choose one framework on another. That's the real context of modernity, of the use of modern frameworks in the real life.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you, Diego. Like, there's always some pitfalls. There's always some multi-paradigm stuff that we should think about. And once again, that's not about like what is the better. We talk about what we can use right now. Okay, guys. Maybe guys have some questions from the stream. Guys. Anyone have questions? I'll take a look a bit later. So we are coming to the conclusion. So I'll maybe switch back the order. So we will start from the conclusions, like what is the pro, what is the cons for each of those, like what is the advantages, what is the drawbacks for each of those, like functional programming or object-oriented programming. We will be starting from the Igor. Igor, like let's conclude everything that we talked about and go to the finish line.
Yeah, thank you. All right, yes, I have my last slide to show. Yeah, it has a funny picture, and as you all know, I'm a functional programming fan, and sometimes I don't like to write in object-oriented paradigm, but I have to, because we are software engineers, and we have to resolve business goals, and we have to know better tools how to meet our business people expectations. And the main idea of all this is you have to know and be familiar with the paradigm and programming language that you use. As I previously show you that even in Java you can do stupid mistakes. As Diego mentioned, you please do not forget about common software development principles like solid keys, grasp, etc. It helps both in object-oriented programming and in functional programming. Even if you are using object-oriented paradigm or you are using a procedure programming paradigm, you can use concepts that you can bring from functional programming, something like immutable data, stateless computations. You can create pure functions. Please go and read about it. What is pure function? What is side effects? How to build your code without side effects, and how this can save your time from unnecessary debugging and finding some errors in your code. And even if you like the functional programming and how it's concise and cool, do not stick into real mathematical stuff if your team and your project and yourself is not ready for that, because you can dig deeper into the functional programming world and try and start using monads, monoids, functors, type categories, applicative functors, etc. And you can write and you can implement cool business features using all of these concepts, but nobody except you, and even you in in 2 months, since you will not understand your code, because it's if you don't know if you don't have the theoretical background for such abstractions. So start from simple things and go deeper if you want, but take in mind that once you write some code, in 5 minutes somebody else should support it, and think about your teammates as well. So that's the main conclusions. And I think that is multi-paradigm to the rescue for everything, and learn something new, and this can help you in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Igor. Like, I'm completely agree that case is one of the things. Cases keep it simple, stupid for the guys who don't know. We should use that like as much as we can. That's really important. Diego, what is your conclusions regarding overall this talk about like functional object oriented? Like, share your thoughts, please.
Okay, sure, Dima. It's true. We need to be familiar with the language programming we use. And in overall, I think that there are two kind of users for the programming languages. Let's take programming language as a tool. We need to use it as we can where we need it. And there are two kind of users for this particular thing tool. Those there are the users that are needed for a specific context and a specific need. Those are the mathematicians, the doctors, musicians, and data scientists maybe. And then those users only needed for a particular purpose. And then there are us developers where we need it for multiple purposes, and we need a full workstation. And for those users, I recommend to be familiar with more than one language, because there are different design patterns, there are different approaches that that gives you a way of thinking, a way of open box thinking, and those design approaches are being useful. Those are the base of every programming language. Um, for example, Java, Python, those were designed for to solve a specific problem that was existing before and was implemented to tackle them. And I think there's still things that need to be solved in compilers, interpreters, and things to be included in getting to know more than one language is gonna open that thinking. It's gonna get you to a new level regarding all these topics we talk about. Uh, Name it recursion, name it high order components, immutability, encapsulation, whatever those approaches are, and those design patterns, those are included already in most modern languages. And I guess for your specific full workstation, you're gonna need one of another. But I just recommend that to get to know more than one. You're gonna have a much better experience. You're gonna feel you're gonna have to use the programming language as a tool. Yeah, thank you, Nima.
Yeah, thank you, Diego. Like, I'm totally agree with you that the programming should be only a tool. No, no, not the something that we should like consider of. So, like, what about my thoughts? Like, actually, what I wanted to tell you guys that the language is actually don't matter. Like, you can pick the Java, you can pick the Python, you pick the JavaScript, or even Lisp or whatever Clojure script, whatever you prefer. But one of the important thing, it should be a tool. And only the solution matter. You have a problem, you make the solution. And if it works good. And if it acceptable for the speeds and if it acceptable from the security stuff, that's good. And don't forget about the things that we often have, like that there is technologies. We love them, we grow them, we use them, but there is a business. And technology should not go over the business because the business is always gonna be over the technologies. Because if there is something important for our clients, we should consider to like go away from some technology, like maybe step aside a bit from our idols and stuff, and go to more about to understand the client, understand the business. uh Thank you so much, guys, for this journey with us. I'm pleased working with the Diego and with the Igor. Thank you so much, guys. That was a big pleasure to talk with you today. Thank you for your patience. Previously, we will get fail start, but hoping that everything will be good. Okay, we have
Yeah,
one
thank you.
question. What the key ideas can help with the choosing one or another approach if you are going to solve a new business task? What question do you have to answer yourself before going down to work with chosen one? Pretty complex question. So, guys, what do you think, uh, Mike, about this question that our lovely viewer Alexander Yermakov is asking? Like, what the key ideas can help us choose one or another. And I'll start answering and give you guys a bit of time for think about that one. So the key idea that Igor was telling, Diego was telling, and I was telling, that there is no such thing as like one, use only object-oriented programming, use only functional programming. There is no such thing. There's multi-paradigm things because in some ways you need to use object-oriented programming. Like suppose you can create the AWS Lambdas using Django and use GraphQL as an endpoint, and then you can write your resolvers as some small, simple, functional functors with the name like that. So that will be super simple, straightforward, and not require a lot. But at top of it, it will be the object-oriented programming because, like the classes in Django, it's one of the important things. and something like graphite inside the Python will do the great job for you. And the same suppose for the Flask. If you use SQL Alchemy and you use something for your Flask application, you could do that. And the same for the JavaScript. Depends. Like there is no such thing that you pick one or another. You always mix, but try to mix it with accuracy. Do not overcome the patterns. Do not try to make the new patterns. If you have some pattern, take something from it. Do not like create the whole new pattern. No, call it something like my super ultra new cool pattern that will solve blah blah blah. Try to use simple things. Once again, go to the kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. Okay, I think Diego want to answer something. So what do you think about that question that Alexander Yermakov asked us?
Yeah, I think you have to think about the overall infrastructure. If you are making use of middlewares or of virtual, because why are people going to Node.js or why people are going to GraphQL? Because you have specific needs. They need to handle with big data. They need to handle a serverless application. They need a mobile application maybe. So it's about the infrastructure of your application. If your application is gonna interact with other services, with other APIs, um, so it depends. It needs a lot of context. It needs at least the things that you're gonna do with your application. What's gonna connect to? Where it's gonna? Who are the main users? What the things are gonna be stored in a database? I think that's a starting point. This structure of overall of your application.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's like totally like absolutely right point because the architecture is the key. Architecture is the key. Igor, what do you think about the question from Alexander Yermakov?
Thank you. I think, yeah, so you should start from what you're familiar with. What is your team prefer to use, and only after that you can check the complexity of your business domain that and the business tasks that you have to implement. And from my point of view, if we are work a lot of with data transformations, we have to definitely check the functional programming concepts and build our logic not around classes and objects as classes that has some data inside and some methods to change the state, and think mostly about different functions that can transform our pure data structures. So you have something, so like your functions, if we're talking about the mathematical functions, you have something as an input and you have something as an output, and this is very suitable for data pipelines, and it can be for big data, and even it can be for single threaded application. And if you have to build complex software with different states, with complex models that are inherits behavior of each other, etc., then maybe you can go with object-oriented programming and concepts using polymorphism, different stuff of design patterns, like use composition over inheritance, and get what actually you need. So that's mostly how I will resolve this problem.
Thank you so much, Igor. Yeah, I think that's absolutely good. Okay, we have one more question from Pablo. Which could be a good functional programming language for those who are starting learning functional programming? I think I'll answer that one. So, Pablo, hope you didn't pronounce it right. So, if you want to try some functional programming languages, I think the best way is to try the Python. It's pretty easy to learn. It's pretty straightforward time to time. And if you need some like simple things for yourself, for your side projects, you can try it. If you need more advanced, then I think you should go to another languages, like maybe to JavaScript or Scala or something more complex that can solve much bigger problem. The Python also can solve, but it all depends on what you prefer, what you like, what the syntax is better for you, and that's the pretty much is what you can start with. The Python, JavaScript, Scala. That's something you can like. There's three main like languages that can support like the most of the things. Uh,
I don't agree with it.
okay, Igor.
If you would like to learn functional programming language, yeah, you definitely can start with multi-paradigm language like Python or JavaScript, or even Scala. But if you would like to learn truly functional programming, start with Haskell, and even Haskell has cool community, and you can find some useful stuff. And Haskell is mostly more human readable functional programming language that I seen before. So it implements mostly all concepts of functional programming, and without any because for example, if you know Java, you can go to Scala to closure, but with Scala 2, you can still write code in Java-like style, and that is not actually what you really like to do, I think. I suppose with Scala 3, things will get better. But with Haskell, you have to think in a functional way without any object-oriented program. So you can go away from it and start using functional programming from scratch. That's where Haskell is suitable for newcomers. It's for hardcore. If you don't want to go deeper and deeper, yeah, you can definitely start with something like a Python or Scala. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Igor. Then maybe Diego want to add something?
Yeah, you can go deeper regarding functional programming. You can be as hardcore as you want, but as an initial point, Python seems like a good option because it's a language everybody's learning. There is a lot of resources online, a lot of classes, and I think it's you can handle pretty easy. This is your first language. It shouldn't have a mathematical background. It can be a bit tricky to learn. For example, poor functions or poor mathematical functional programming. So I think in overall, you guys expressed it very well. There are two kind of um, objectives and targets that you want to achieve in your learning, and those two are good options. If you want to go for a poor functional programming functions, if you want just to get into the programming and see if this is something you like doing, or is this something that adapts to your needs and business priorities, Python is a good choice because you can have a quick overview, a quick look, and get to know a few functions that are already implemented in the modular approach of Python. And that's it. You can have a business operating and see how it evolves from there. If after that you're gonna need a few other things, you can just move from there, and the change is not gonna impact a lot in the current state.
Yeah. Yep. Also agree. And so we all three agree that the Python will be good for the start if you want to be like in a slow. Once again, guys, I think that's it. Our time is running over. There is no more questions as I see. Once again, thank you so much. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Vitali. Thank you, Daria, for making this through once again. That was a big pleasure to speak with you, to talk with you. Hoping that we can repeat this sometime. Uh, Once again, thank you guys for being with us. Thank you for your attention and see you in the future then.
See you next time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.